feel overwhelming fast. There's so much to see, and if you're not careful, you end up zigzagging across the city, wasting time on the metro, and arriving everywhere already tired. So, in this video, I'm taking you through the top 19 things to do in Paris, but in a way that actually makes sense. We're organizing everything into 6 easy zones, grouped by what's closest to each other, and that means you can kick out one zone at a time, walk more, commute less, and still hit the biggest icons, plus a few spots that feel more local. Pause the screen. This is the Paris cheat map. 6 zones, all the top spots grouped by distance, so you don't bounce across the city all day. We're going zone by zone, and at the end, I'll tell you which zones are best if you only have 1, 2, or 3 days. Zone 1, Historic Heart. 1. Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris. Notre-Dame rises over the forecourt in Ile de la Cité like the beating heart of Paris, and honestly, it still feels symbolic for the whole country. Napoleon was crowned here, and generations of royalties stood at this altar for weddings, so you're not just seeing a church, you're stepping into a chapter of French history. The inside is free to visit, and it's absolutely worth walking through for the scale, the light, and that quiet contrast to the noise outside. The exterior is just as stunning as the carved details, and when the South Tower access is operating, the view up top, standing near the gargoyles, can be one of those okay, this is Paris moments. Expect tower tickets to be roughly $15 to $20 when available. Insider tip. Come early in the morning or later in the day, midday crowds on the island can get chaotic fast. 2. The Louvre. Yes, the Eiffel Tower is the most recognized symbol of Paris, but I get why some travelers choose the Louvre first, because it's honestly more interesting if you love art, history, and jaw-dropping interiors. It's one of the best art museums on the planet, and it's also one of the most visited and the largest, with about 210,000 square meters of exhibit space covering works from pretty much every civilization. The big 3 everyone runs to are the Mona Lisa, the Venus de Milo, and the Winged Victory of Samothrace. But the real move is having a game plan. Know where you're going and what you want to see first, so you're not wandering in circles for an hour. That said, don't be scared to get a little lost, because the Louvre is the kind of place where you can turn one corner and accidentally find something unforgettable. In 2026, adult entry is typically around $24 for standard tickets, and for some non-EU visitors, it can be around $37, so check your category before you buy. Insider tip. Book the earliest time slot you can and enter with a first 3 targets list. Your experience will feel 10 times calmer. 3. Covered passages. Think of the covered passages near the grand boulevards as Paris's elegant original malls, but with way more character. These aren't just shopping arcades, they're historic galleries from the 18th and 19th centuries with a very specific atmosphere. Glass roofs, warm light, and that old Paris charm that makes you slow down without even trying. Inside, you'll find second-hand bookshops, tea rooms, and gift shops, and they're a fun alternative to modern shopping streets. Plus, walking through is free, so you only pay if you grab a coffee or a little souvenir. Galerie Vivienne and Passage Jouffroy are 2 of the famous ones people look for. Insider tip. This is one of the best rain-saves-the-day spots in Paris. Still pretty, still very Parisian, and you don't get soaked. 4. Slide along the Seine on a bateau mouche. For a lot of people, the Seine is the most romantic side of Paris, and if you're visiting with someone you love, the bateau mouche cruise is an easy win. The river bends under bridge after bridge, and the banks are lined with world-class monuments, basically postcard after postcard in real life. It's honestly one of the best ways to see a maximum number of landmarks in 1 or 2 hours, especially from the open terrace when the weather's good. Yes, it's touristy, most Parisians avoid it like a sport, but sometimes it's worth throwing on the audio guide, blending into the crowd, and just enjoying Paris from the water. Cruises are usually around $20 to $30 depending on the company and time of day. Insider tip. Go at sunset on a weekday if you can. The light is unreal, and it feels less like a tour and more like a vibe. Alright, now that we've hit the historic heart, let's slide a little east into the Marais, where the streets get trendier, the museums get cooler, and the vibe feels way more local. Zone 2. Le Marais and Central East. Boutiques, museums, old mansions. 5. The Marsh. The Marais is hands down one of the best shopping districts in Paris, but it's way more than stores. Set in the 3rd and 4th arrondissements, it's packed with old mansions, genuinely great museums, solid restaurants and cafes, the historic Jewish Quarter, and the beautiful Place des Vosges. So it ends up being an essential Paris day, whether you plan it or not. The best thing to do is simply walk. Hit Rue Vieille du Temple and Rue des Francs Bourgeois as your 2 main spines, then let yourself drift into the side streets for the hidden courtyards, little galleries, and unexpected finds. Walking the neighborhood is free, and you can spend on shopping only if you feel like it. Insider tip. Go earlier in the morning for photos and calmer streets. By afternoon, the Marais turns into a crowd magnet. 6. The Picasso Museum. This museum is wildly popular, and it got a major second life when it reopened in late 2014 after a big controversial renovation that reportedly cost around 52 million euros. Inside, you're looking at the largest public collection of Picasso's work in the world, spread across nearly 5,000 square meters in 2 buildings, the 17th century Hôtel Salé and the newer garden-side structure used for temporary exhibits. Even the furniture is part of the story. Pieces designed by Diego Giacometti inside Hotel Salé are a bonus detail that people don't always expect. Tickets are typically around $18 to $20 depending on the day and ticket type. Insider tip. Aim for a weekday and go right at opening. This place can feel packed fast because the rooms aren't huge. 7. The Desrolles House. Desrolles is one of the most unique stops in Paris, part shop, part museum, part cabinet of curiosities, and it's been charming Parisians since 1831. But calling it a taxidermy museum is honestly too small for what it feels like inside. It's more like walking into an enchanted forest scene where tigers, bears, and even a giant giraffe stand peacefully among cases filled with birds, insects, butterflies, shells, corals, and even reconstructed skeletons. Open the drawers and you'll find what feels like every insect and butterfly imaginable, either to study, to admire, or to inspire your own little collection. Entry is typically free, so it's a perfect wow stop that doesn't hit your budget. Insider tip. Go mid-morning on a weekday. Later afternoons can get crowded with people filming and taking photos. Now let's cross over to the left bank. This is where Paris slows down a little. Gardens, sculpture, impressionists, and yes, a tiny bit of spooky history too. Zone 3. Left bank classics, gardens, sculptures, impressionists, and spooky stuff. 8. The Musée d'Orsay. Since 1986, the Musée d'Orsay has lived inside one of the most beautiful former train stations in Paris, and even before you look at a single painting, the building itself already feels like an experience. The galleries hold the largest collection of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist masterpieces in the world, so you'll see heavy hitters like Cézanne, Monet, Renoir, Manet, Van Gogh, Degas, Gauguin, and more. It's not just paintings, you'll also find Art Nouveau decorative arts and a strong lineup of 19th century sculptures. When you need a break, go relax at the cafe behind the museum's giant transparent clock. It's a classic little Paris moment. Tickets are usually around $18 to $20. Insider tip. Book a morning slot, then head straight to your must-sees first, then loop back for the clock cafe when crowds build. 9. The Rodin Museum. This museum sits in an imposing 18th century residence that used to be the great sculptor's workshop, and it's genuinely one of the prettiest museum visits in Paris. Inside are more than 7,000 sculptures by Rodin, including the Thinker, the Kiss, the Burghers of Calais, and the Gates of Hell, along with around 8,000 drawings and gouaches. But don't sleep on the garden. The Musée Rodin Park is part of the magic, with fountains, rose bushes, and even a little beer garden that makes it an ideal slow afternoon choice. The museum also runs special exhibits and cycles of contemporary work, so it's not just a one-note stop. After renovations, it fully reopened in November 2015 and still feels beautifully curated today. Tickets are usually around $15 to $18. Insider tip. Go late afternoon. Many people rush it, but the garden is best when you're not speed walking. 10. The Luxembourg Garden. This 25-hectare park is the left bank's classy escape hatch, an elegant way to step out of the city buzz without leaving the city. Framed by Saint-Germain-des-Prés and the Latin Quarter, it's the kind of place Parisians love for sunbathing in those green chairs or throwing together an impromptu picnic. Kids, and honestly adults too, can watch the little sailboats on the basin behind the Senate, explore the play area, catch a puppet show, or even check out the city's oldest riding school. Joggers loop the paths, while others wander through the orchard and apiary where beekeeping is taught and honey is sold in the fall. And don't miss the art exhibitions at the Luxembourg Mansion if one is on. The gardens themselves are free. 11. Dive into the catacombs of Paris. If you want to keep the mood glaucous, creepy, but fascinating, this is the one. The catacombs are easily one of the most unsettling attractions in Paris. Kilometers of tunnels lined with femurs and skulls from about 6 million Parisians. They were built 18 meters underground at the end of the 18th century to stop diseases from spreading from overflowing cemeteries in the city center, and today the visit feels like an icy walk through history. Tickets are usually around $35 to $40, and time slots sell out fast. Insider tip. Book the first slot of the day. Later on, the entry can eat your schedule alive, and tunnels feel more cramped when it's packed. Okay, time to switch gears. We're heading west for the big iconic Paris moments. Skyline views, major monuments, and some seriously bold modern architecture. Zone 4. West Paris icons, big views, big monuments, modern art. 12. The Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is to Paris what the Statue of Liberty is to New York and what Big Ben is to London. The ultimate emblem. Gustave Eiffel, already famous for viaducts and bridges, spent 2 years building this iconic monument for the 1889 World Fair, and it was also meant to salute the centenary of the French Revolution. But honestly, the tower is at its most beautiful at night when it lights up and does that sparkling show. That sparkle was originally planned only for the year 2000, but people loved it so much that the 20,000 bulbs were installed permanently in 2003. The tower dances for 5 minutes every hour after dark until 1 a.m., and it's one of those moments that still hits even if you've seen it online 1,000 times. It's extremely visited, but it is possible to visit all 3 levels without queuing if you plan ahead. Tickets vary by route and level, but adult prices typically land around $25 to $45. Insider tip. If you want fewer crowds and better photos, do a late evening time slot. Paris looks incredible lit up, and the vibe feels more wow than checklist. 13. Climb the Arc de Triomphe. This is your stretch your legs moment. Climb the 284 steps to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. From up there, you'll see the Champs-Élysées laid out like a runway, plus the modern Arc of la Défense in the distance. It's also a front row seat to Paris driving culture. Place de l'Étoile can feel totally anarchic, and there's even a local joke truth that when accidents happen here, blame often gets split 50-50 on the report. When you come back down, take a second at the tomb of the unknown soldier beneath the arc. It's one of those quiet, grounding Paris moments. Tickets are usually around $18 to $20. Insider tip. Go close to sunset. Golden light on the Champs-Élysées is unreal, and the city grid starts to glow. 14. Louis Vuitton Foundation. The Foundation Louis Vuitton rises over the Bois de Boulogne like a giant ship made of glass. Wavy crystal sails that seriously stand out on the Paris skyline. Designed by Frank Gehry, it's one of the most captivating pieces of modern architecture here since the Pompidou first shook things up back in 1977. Commissioned by Bernard Arnault, it holds major works from his private collection. Names like Pierre Huyck, Gerard Richter, Thomas Schutte, Ellsworth Kelly, Bertrand Lavier, Terence Simon, Sarah Morris, Christian Boltanski, and more. It also runs big temporary exhibits, including installations like those by Danish-Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson. Full-rate tickets are typically about $18. Now we're going up, literally! Let's finish in Montmartre, where Paris gets hillier, artsier, and the views feel like a movie set. Zone 5. Montmartre, hills, views, and that Paris from a movie feeling. 15. The Basilica of the Sacred Heart. It's hard not to feel like you're climbing into the clouds when you're heading up the Sacré-Cœur, this White Castle perched on Montmartre. The French government ordered it in 1873 after the brutal years of the Paris Commune and the Franco-Prussian War, and architect Paul Abadi designed it with a mix of Romanesque and Byzantine elements. Some critics have called the style gaudy, especially compared to Barcelona's Sagrada Familia, but in person, the building has a presence that's hard to argue with. Construction stretched all the way to World War I, and the basilica was finally consecrated in 1919. Entry to the basilica is free, and if you choose to go up to the dome for views, that's usually around $10. Insider tip. Skip midday and go early morning. The light is softer, and the steps aren't a shoulder-to-shoulder climb. 16. Discover the Vineyards of Montmartre. After you explore the Montmartre Museum, slow down in the Renoir Gardens, a peaceful little pocket overlooking Montmartre's tiny vineyards. This is also where you'll find the only late 19th century cabaret still standing here, Au Le Pont Agile, which adds a very old Paris layer to the scene. The gardens inspired Impressionist artists who lived in the neighborhood, Valadon, Utrillo, and, of course, Renoir. And if you're lucky, you might even meet Salise, the museum's friendly cat named after the founder of Au Chat Noir. Museum entry varies, but plan on roughly $15 to $18 for the museum, while wandering the area outside is free. Insider tip. Come late afternoon, most day trippers are already leaving, and Montmartre starts feeling more local again. Last zone is where you get a taste of everyday Paris. Canals, local parks, and places that feel way less tourist checklist and way more real life. Zone 6. Northeast and local Paris, canals, parks, and real-life neighborhoods. 17. Play boule along the Ourcq Canal. The Canal de l'Ourcq dates back to the 19th century, and Napoleon originally created it to supply Paris with drinking water. Later, it became a major goods transport route. Today, it's a completely different vibe. Like Canal Saint-Martin downstream, the Ourcq pulls in a trendy crowd. Students, 30-somethings, young families who come to play pétanque along the banks, picnic, hang by the water, and even play ping pong in the nearby play areas. Walking and hanging out is free, and you'll only spend if you grab snacks or drinks. 18. Buttes-Chaumont Park. Paris has no shortage of parks, from the Tuileries Path to Luxembourg Ponds, but if you want something more unusual and way less busy, Buttes-Chaumont is absolutely worth it. Perched up near Belleville, and often forgotten by people staying in the tourist loop, this 19th arrondissement gem feels surprisingly magical, like a secret landscape park built into the city. It's one of those places where you can walk for an hour and forget you're even in Paris. Entry is free. Insider tip. Go on a weekday morning. Locals treat weekends here like a festival, which is fun, but not exactly quiet. 19. The Père-Lachaise Cemetery. Père-Lachaise is basically Paris's celebrity cemetery. So many famous, talented people are buried here that the list never really ends. And it's not only the French. Religion and nationality were never strict barriers, as long as the person lived in Paris, died in Paris, or had a space in a family grave. From Balzac to Chopin to Oscar Wilde, whose tomb is famously marked by admirers' kisses, it becomes a kind of endless treasure hunt through art, music, and literal history. Entry is free. Insider tip. Grab a simple map at the entrance or screenshot one before you go. Otherwise, you'll spend half your visit wandering in circles, which can be nice but less efficient. Useful info before visiting Paris. Best time to visit Paris. The easiest time to visit Paris is April to June and September to early October. The weather's pleasant, the city feels alive, and crowds are more manageable than peak summer. July and August are the busiest and most expensive, and locals often leave the city, while November to March is colder and quieter, great for museums and cozy cafes. Just pack layers and expect some gray days. Where to stay in Paris? If it's your first time and you want to walk everywhere, stay in the central arrondissements. You'll pay more, but you'll save time. Areas like Louvre, Opera, and Le Marais are super convenient, with hotels often around $200 to $450 per night depending on season. For a classic Paris vibe with cafes and pretty streets, the Saint-Germain Latin Quarter area usually runs $180 to $400 per night. If you want better value, look a bit farther out but still pretty metro-friendly. Places like the 11th or 12th often come in around $140 to $280 per night while still feeling very real Paris. How to get around Paris? Paris is made for walking, but the metro's your best friend for longer hops. Most rides cost around $3, and it's usually faster than taxis and traffic. Uber taxis are convenient late at night or in the rain, but short rides can easily hit $15 to $30 depending on the distance and time. If you're comfortable biking, bike share is a great way to move between neighborhoods and along the river without feeling stuck underground. Just watch for busy intersections and scooters. Where to eat in Paris? If you want a few can't-miss food stops that actually feel worth it, here are my go-tos. Bouillon Châtier is the classic old-school Paris dining hall. Fast, fun, and perfect when you want to try French comfort food without spending a lot. Most people can eat well here for about $15 to $30 depending on what you order. Bouillon République is another famous bouillon with the same idea. Big hearty plates, busy vibe, and great value. Usually around $15 to $30 for a full meal. And if you want the iconic Paris steak frite experience, Le Relais de l'Entrecôte is the famous one-menu spot. Plan to spend about $35 to $45 per person and expect a line. Go early or late to avoid the longest wait. For a solid vegetarian option, Le Potager du Marais is a great pick in a central area with French-style dishes done vegetarian-vegan. Most meals land around $20 to $40 depending on what you choose. Alright, before you go, here's the quick cheat sheet for which zones to prioritize depending on how much time you have. If you have one day, hit Zone 1, the historic core with the biggest must-sees close together. 2 days, do Zone 1 plus Zone 3 for the left bank classics. 3 days, add Zone 4 for the big postcard icons and views. After that, Zone 2 is perfect for cafes and shopping in the Marais, Zone 5 for Montmartre, and Zone 6 if you want something more local and less touristy. If this helped you, hit subscribe. We post travel guides like this every week, and it seriously makes planning so much easier. And if you have a friend who's going to Paris, share this video with them so you can stay on the same game plan and not zigzag all day. And don't go anywhere, your next stop is Vienna. Click the next video and I'll show you the best things to do there, organized the same way, simple, walkable, and zero stress.